Welcome to the panel titled "Do Cohesion Funds Really Protect the Environment?" that we organized as a part of Europe in My Backyard project. The project Europe in My Backyard aims to share information, debate, and offer high-level analysis regarding the impact and perspectives of the European cohesion policy in 6 countries, including Slovenia. It is an initiative that is promoted by 6 European local and regional radios like Radio Študent. At Radio Študent, as a part of Europe in My Backyard project, we explore many areas of cohesion policy. We looked at education programs in prisons, infrastructure projects, and financing of the new construction, and most importantly, environmental projects that are going to be the main topic of today's panel. The panel will consist of 2 parts. The first one we already started. We're going to talk about cohesion policy in general and how it works. And in the second part, we're going to look at specific projects that helped to preserve the environment and its species. After each of the parts, there's also going to be a couple of questions that you've sent into the email, and we are going to read those and answer them. I would also like you to invite you to share the stream on YouTube and Facebook. So in the first half, we're going to talk about cohesion policy as such. With us is Liliana Madjar, Vice President of Association of Regional Development Agencies of Slovenia, shorter RARAGIS, and a journalist of Radio Študent, Gal Krizmanic. So we're going to start with, what are cohesion funds, Ms. Madjar?
Thank you for the question, and hello. So cohesion funds are different European funds that enable sources for hundreds of thousands of projects across Europe. For Slovenia, it is available for 7 years period, something like 3.2 billion euros for these purposes, but for very special purposes. It is really defined. So if I simplify, I would say that this is money of European taxpayers. So all member states, countries agree to contribute to EU budget, and then we all together, member states and EU Commission, agree how to use this money in most beneficiary way. So some money some countries contribute more than they get from the European budget, and we call them net payers, and the other get more than they contribute, and these are net recipients.
So does Slovenia contribute more, or?
No, for Slovenia is net recipients.
Okay. So how is cohesion policy financed? Or how does it work? How do you apply for certain projects?
If I just continue where I stopped, so basically this EU budget then goes to member states, and there are strong or really defined rules how this money can be spent, how it can be used, how it can be invested. So each member state has to prepare and to harmonize with EU 2 basic documents. First is partnership agreement, which gives a complete framework for all European funds. Also, agriculture fund is not part of cohesion policy, but is part of this partnership agreement. And the second important document is a so-called program for implementation of EU funds in Slovenia. Now we are waiting for the one for the period 21-27, and this is the basis. For this period, we have 4 funds. So we have cohesion funds for these large-scale projects, and mostly environmental and traffic. Then we have a European Social Fund for supporting jobs and social policy and equality. Then we have European Regional Development Fund, and for the first time also Just Transition Fund for the special regions who has this problem with transition in Slovenia. These are Zasavje and Čaleška.
So where did this division into regional development agencies come from, and why does it make sense?
I would call it a little bit different. It is not division to regional development agencies. I would say that we are talking about allocation of European funds to development regions. I think it makes more sense. So first, these funds are contributed but allocated to 2 cohesion regions and then to 12 development regions. But regional development agencies are basic development institutions in each of these regions, and we are responsible that everything operates like it should in this phase of preparing, of planning, of programming and implementation. And we are not talking about 3.2 billion, but this is just one part of money. We are talking about 460 millions, which will be used for implementing of regional projects on the regional level. As I said, the whole amount expected for the European cohesion policy is 3.2 billion of euros.
So we've already seen that there's been many projects that have cohesion funds. So what kind of projects did we look at, Karl?
Yeah, I think that we looked 10 projects, but probably the one type that was particularly interesting are projects that deal with environment, specifically about building up ecosystems, for example, on Pohorje and on in Posavje. And these projects were interesting because they opened up a lot of questions in local communities about the purpose of those, and because local communities often see those projects in light of their potential of these regions for tourism, and on the other hand, how does those policies clash with activities like tourism. For example, in Pohorje you have the skiing resort, and we covered a project that dealt with revigorating forests there. And for example, beaver population in Podravje region, where you have a lot of controversy with farmers and with some communities that feel like those projects maybe have negative influence. Those what needs to be done for example, beaver to return, that this is in contradiction to safety about floods, for example. And other area that we covered quite a bit is infrastructure building. So, for example, so-called the drugi tir project, or second rail between Postojna and Koper, Divača and Koper, that is heavily funded by cohesion policy, and I think that this was one category of projects that were quite popular in a sense, because this is something that government is reluctant to fund in its regular budget. So we have systems in our government that finances, for example, very large programs of health and education and so on, and also support for small businesses and such things. But infrastructure projects that are unexpected expenses on part of government or on part of local governments also, especially local governments that have trouble financing these projects. This is where cohesion funds were very prominent and were very popular. I don't think there is a lot of controversy about whether this is smart, whether this is smart to invest in so-called concrete, but I see it more as mirror image of the fact what our regular government is willing to finance on its regular business, what is not included in those programs. I think it's interesting to think about some things that the investments, either that are projects, so they have some planning, initiation phase, and then they're concluded, and then you have programs that are on continuous basis. Yeah? So I think cohesion policy also forces governments, local and other institutions organizations that rely on cohesion funds, that they operate in terms of projects and not in terms of programs.
So what kind of projects are mostly popular?
Yeah, I mentioned infrastructure projects, so we visited second rail, if I use this English pronunciation, drugi tir. That is something that was very welcomed. Also, that was not particularly controversial. Also, in local communities that had a lot of support on level of government, Slovenian government, and maybe what was maybe not so highly visible then as with infrastructure project, but was, in my opinion, the most interesting for us who work on this project most. We liked it the most was project for education of prisoners, of integrating them back to. I mean, it's not the best way to say, but integrating into the workforce. This was something that I think proved itself to be quite something that is also popular with people who are in fact receivers of this activity. So with those prisoners who are involved in project.
So if we go back to the structure, what is the role of regional development agency, for example?
Oh, we have a long list of our roles, but I think today we are talking about or discussing about cohesion policy, so I will just focus on 3. So first is strategic planning. European funds operates in 7 years periods, and for 7-year period we have to prepare so-called regional development program for each of 12 regions, and we have to harmonize this program with EU policies and find agreement in region on priorities, on strategic goals, and also define key regional projects. So this is really important, so that on a long run we can plan what is really important for added value for the development of the region. Then, of course, this regional development program has its implementation document, and this is a so-called agreement for the development of the regions. And we prepare also this document, so this is basic part of this document is a list of these priority projects, and it has to be approved by the decision-making bodies in the region. So we know that we are not governmental regions, but we have 2 decision-making bodies. One is Council of Mayors, so it consists of all mayors in my region, it's Ljubljana urban region, it's 25 mayors. And we have development council where we have also representatives of the companies, NGOs, so this mixed structure. So this way, in all 12 regions, we allocate this. We will allocate this 460 millions for regional projects. And I think what is really important in this whole area of cohesion policy, we are excellent partners for creating of projects, for implementation of projects. I think that we write stories, so we translate these local needs into regional projects, and I find this like really added value for the development.
So, how are regional development agencies connected with each other?
Yeah, so we do not have this governmental power because this is structure of political and governmental system in Slovenia. But we are stronger when we work together, when we are discussing policies with governmental institutions. We need some stable environment for implementing and projects for law, and we are then connected into Association of Regional Development Agency 20 years ago, and so we work like an association.
And what is the role of the Regional Development Agency in relation to cohesion funds? So how do you, for example, decide which projects are you going to choose and which are priority projects?
Yes, well, I think that basis I said I defined when I said it's a regional development program, which defines our priorities, our key projects, but it has to be harmonized with European policies. So we have to respect also these European policies, and this defines contents in which area projects can be financed. Then second important part, financial sources. So how much money is available for a region, for one of these 12 regions, for each of them. And then when we know this, then it is important how far projects are prepared, how can they be implemented. The financial structure has to be closed, and when all this is okay, then we prepare list of projects which is adopted by these decision-making bodies in the region.
And how are funds distributed between different projects? So how much money does a certain project get? How do you decide that?
This decision is, we have on one side we have available funds and contents that could be or can be financed. On the other side we have these different projects and the different projects, and then it is needed to find this equilibrium, how much it goes. This is so-called programming in the region. We have to negotiate it and then find a solution that everybody is satisfied with.
So certain projects have to sort of make a plan how much funds they would need for, you know, to just finish the project or whatever.
Yes, each project has to have plan for its lifetime circle for financial construction, so no construction structure, and then it's a process to find this solution that are solutions for everybody.
So this year we also have a special program that we call Obnova in Odpornost that is dedicated to COVID-19, or it's connected to it. So what is this program, Gal?
Yeah, so this is this money came out of desire of Brussels to address COVID-19 crisis or its economic consequences of what we needed to do in order to avoid unnecessary illnesses and deaths and spread of disease back in 2020 and 2021. In total, there is 750 billion euros available. Part of that is financed for the first time by issuing of, in a sense, European bonds. They don't want to say them, call them European bonds, but basically European Commission itself was given authority to borrow money that will be covered by contributions of EU members to the EU budget. This for Slovenia, this is divided between grants, that is money that is given to Slovenia and doesn't need to be returned, and this is just like, in a sense, free money. And then there is also part of it that comes in form of fairly affordable loans. Slovenia decided that it will use all of the grants, which is about 1.5 billion euros, and just a smaller proportion of available loans. I think it was like just over 500 million euros, exactly.
So
And this was then given under conditions that is spent on certain priorities that are mostly connected with green transition and with increased resilience of a society to shocks like we had with COVID-19, for example, so health systems and so on.
yeah, so what kind of projects did Slovenia decided to finance from this?
Yeah, the largest two items that are financed in this system, this package are investment in railway infrastructure. This is reasons for that is that is something that Slovenia needs, but it also can be justified by that this is green investment. So by moving transport from road to rail, this is a way to decrease CO2 emissions. And a second very large item that is more spread out among local governments is investment in infrastructure that deals with flood protection, a lot of dams and cleaning up of rivers and stuff like that. This is fairly typical this was something that local governments like to prioritize. It's very simple to implement in a sense. It's not very usually it's not so complex project as some infrastructure project that involves a lot of more complex planning of space and a lot of bureaucracy. And it's also something that this is part of the resilience priority in this recovery and resilience story, and it is something that government also plans to basically save money because they will not need to give some they will avoid costs of rebuilding, for example, that some regions that are prone to floods.
So how do you choose projects that you're going to finance? So for example, if we have a certain region, do you choose, for example, if something happens like environmental crisis, you choose certain environmental projects, or how does that work?
Oh, it's not so free. Our choice is not so free. So Europe has 6 goals for this programming period: smarter Europe, greener Europe, more connected Europe, more social Europe, Europe close to citizens, and Just Transition Fund. And in Slovenia, the greatest part of money should be invested in first 2 priorities: smarter and greener Europe. So we get the allocation of money for these regional funds, and the biggest part is going to be invested in greener Europe. So we are talking about wastewater management, drinking water management, and green infrastructure. Then to regional mobility, and a part goes to smarter Europe, to incubators and projects promoting entrepreneurship, and a small part to other priorities. So it is not just our choice, but in this framework we are trying to find the most beneficiary project, the best solutions for added value.
But there is also quite a lot of leeway in interpretation how you justify some project in context of those priorities. So it's not, you have some space to relocate among with those priorities set. You have, I think, quite a lot of freedom to.
Yeah, there is, but when there is waste management, you need agglomerations big enough, and projects have to be prepared. These are complicated projects because they need a lot of time for preparing of documentation. In some areas there is, of course, we are flexible, but if I say we cannot finance any any culture in the whole Western Slovenia, because this is not on the priorities of cohesion policy for developed regions. So these are the rules.
Yes. So what are some of the projects that you would say people in, for example, Ljubljana region were mostly happy that took place? For example, were those environmental projects, infrastructure, education?
I would say all of them. We just have to promote these projects, to tell people this is co-financed by European funds. I don't know, in Ljubljana you have from Stožice to waste waste management plant. Then we have a lot of these soft projects, bicycle trails, so a lot of them. I think we have to promote them, to convince people, yes, this is Europe, here is Europe for you. And there is a lot of small projects, like, I don't know, room for writing in Vodnikova Domačija or Cukrarna. I just got a few examples from my region, but there are hundreds these projects in Slovenia.
So you would say the cohesion funds are very important, especially for the smaller projects. For example, they could not have done this without these funds.
I would say cohesion funds are really important for Slovenia, because Slovenia is one of the countries where a a lot of public investments are co-financed by cohesion funds. It goes to 30% of Slovenia, which is much more than average in Europe. So it is really important for small and for large-scale projects. And I think this is the result that in last decades or last years, in our budget there were not sufficient investment funds. And this European funds, cohesion policy, compensation. So I think this is one of the basic reason why it's so important.
So we looked at many projects, and we also saw some of the problems that cohesion projects or funds have. What are those that we found out?
Yeah, I would categorize, for example, three areas. One is question of administration that is needed. Cohesion policy or programs also often have very heavy burden, bureaucratic burden that is supposed to ensure that all the money is spent fairly and squarely, but this imposes additional costs to the recipients of the projects. Often, for example, and this differs greatly between organizations that are involved. For example, larger for example, government municipalities often have their own offices with people who are well versed in all the bureaucratic requirements, and this goes quite smoothly. The municipalities also organized their own institutions to deal with this burden, but smaller, more individual participants, like I don't know, some NGOs, some associations that just apply for open projects, they often have to spend significant part of their money that they received on employing somebody who is whose only job is to basically make sure that all the papers are in order. And also this burden is quite different between different. It's not necessarily the same burden for all participants. For example, often companies very rarely, in those projects that we covered, very rarely complained about this, that they have a lot of problems with this. Part of it is that also they have larger offices of people who deal with this stuff, but also some requirements, particularly in after COVID, were very light, and so these funds were very quickly approved. Second issue we found was on what funds are given to people who really need them. For example, we covered a project that helps to finance solar panels on the roofs of companies. We have in Slovenia a project that is a program. If I put this, I've mentioned earlier distinction between projects and programs. There is program for this kind of investment in households. So, for example, if you have individual house, you can install a solar panel by Ecos Club. Eco Fund that is financed by carbon tax. But for companies, there is still ongoing on several tranches European project on this goal. Every single company that I talked to, and I talked, for example, with 10 of them, said that they have business interest to invest in those solar panels even if they don't get the money. So it's totally redundant for them. They said that it's nice that they get, I don't know, 100,000 euros or whatever, but they don't need it because it makes economic sense for them to invest in solar panels regardless, because it reduces their electricity bill. So there is question if that is the case, why was this even necessary? This, of course, is partly connected to high energy prices, but on the other hand, this was so clear of a case that nobody that I talked to even questioned this, and they also have to finance it 80% on their own either way. So they only get 20% of the investment, which, if it makes economic sense for them to invest 80%, the last 20% is very vague if even they need it. And second, and the third area that I would point out that I found particularly interesting is to do with ecological projects, with environmental projects. So in the projects that are about biodiversity, about recovery of some ecosystems, that biologists are of split mind about not why we do it, but basically we are creating environments that are at the same time are supposed to be natural. So these are the lands that are not in commercial use, but they are in a sense artificial because they are making possible environments that wouldn't exist on their own. For example, grasslands. In Europe, we lost so-called megafauna for bisons and large herdal animals that feed on grass about 3,000 years ago. So there is no environmental predisposition for grasslands to exist in many cases, but we invest money in order to maintain those environments with farm machinery, but we pay farmers so they cultivate this land not with modern techniques that would make impossible for a lot of, they would make monocultural environment, but they get paid in order to practice so-called old techniques in order to have so-called plenty species grassland environment, which is in effect artificial also. But there is very interesting debate among ecologists and biologists of to what extent we should do it, because this is yes an artificial natural environment, but is also consequences of our activity in nature, because we contributed to extinction of those animals that enabled in the past those environments. So we are often, in most cases, those projects are in fact rebuilding or recovering environments, ecosystems that existed in, let's say, 100 or 150 years ago, which is some time period that our collective memory recognizes as authentic. So this was, I think, very interesting debate that we got in our research.
So we are gonna move to the Q&A portion of this panel. So one of the questions that was sent in is, how do you promote these cohesion projects and how to just present them to people so they know this exists and they are founded by European Union?
Each European project that we are running in our agencies or in the Slovenian regional development agencies is promoted, because part of the documentation, I agree with you that it is huge, and I must say that new Minister for Development And cohesion policy informed us that one of his short-run goals is simplification of running or of implementation of EU projects and less administration. So I think that next year he will start with this process. But what is good that communication or promotion, or the expression is dissemination of this project is part of the project. So we promote them on websites as much as possible on the field. We try to communicate with people as much as possible. And I believe that we will do even more, because yesterday I was in Bled. There was a conference on so-called regional days, and there was Mr. Frank Schneider from Interreg Europe, and there was nice expression, knowledge, if kept to oneself and never shared with the world, tend to lose its worth. So I think we shouldn't lose the worth, so we should communicate even more.
Okay, and another question I have that was sent in was, what are some of the priority projects that you mentioned? For example, what are some that stick out that you've decided you're going to finance or that are going to get funds?
On regional level, our priorities are more or less defined with available funds. So, as I said, water management, wastewater management, and green infrastructure. Then we are very happy with regional mobility, because a lot of money was invested in past periods, so we can continue with bicycle lanes and public transport. It is crucial to connect all the Slovenia for sustainable mobility and also for tourism, because this is, I think, for small investment we get great added value. Then, of course, this environmental ecosystem and promotion of entrepreneurship and some incubators. And we will also try to apply for some other funds. There are many different programs. The Repower is coming, Bauhaus is coming. So new programs are answers on the current policy challenges, and I believe we will be successful.
Thank you both for your time and cooperation. On our panel, we're going to continue with the second part in around 5 to 10 minutes. So yeah, we will see you in the second part.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk about the projects that were financed by cohesion funds and are focused on environmental issues. Radio Študent covered quite a lot of different projects and organizations that are environmentally based. We talked about saving species like beavers. We also talked about particles in air and how to measure them. Even when talking about infrastructure projects, we try to look at how changing the riverbed and building new facilities can damage the environment and natural habitats. So today with us is Nena Bibica iz organizacije PINA. And PINA was a partner of project named Zelena kohezija, or Green Cohesion. So let's start with, what is Green Cohesion?
Hello everyone. For the beginning, Green Cohesion is actually an awareness raising project. Was financed by European Union, and the aim is to promote cohesion policy. We call it green because we focused on the green part of the cohesion. As you know, cohesion policy is huge, and if we want to promote it as a whole, it's very difficult to people to understand what cohesion is. So we did some analyze, pick some good practices, and we promote green cohesion through some projects that were implemented in Slovenia, did some campaigns, some spots on TV, The lead partner of the project was the regional RTV Center Koper. So we tried in a way what you are trying to do to promote cohesion and the impact cohesion policy has on the environment and the society we are living in.
So how did you find out about this project? Were you contacted or did you apply for something?
No, I'm actually a big fan of cohesion policy. I have to admit, I'm involved in cohesion policy the whole my working career. Now it's more than 15 years. So I found a call online. Normal search through Google. Once in a while I'm going to DG Regio and look up what they have. And then there was this call and we said, let's try to do it, because PINA is trying to raise awareness about important things in society in different ways, and we thought this is a very unique way to merge together, raise awareness of cohesion, and on the second level, or the first level, raise awareness about green. And what we also did is try to raise participation, because it's very important when you talk about cohesion that it's close to people, as people before me said. So in the project we also have some panels, and we were involving people to listen to their ideas, how they would like cohesion to be developed in the future. I think this is the first step to make it more participatory, the development of new programs, the new perspectives that are coming.
So what was it like to apply? Was there a lot of documents to sign? Did you have to make sort of a plan for finances, or what did you have to do?
This call was very easy if you compare it with what the cohesion calls are. If we are talking about national calls or Interreg calls, are very more complicated than the one we applied for this project. Of course, also, if you have lump sums or flat rates, it's very important that you have an idea of what you're going to do and how much it would cost you. So it's very important to do the plan, do the work plan of activities, of course, and it always takes some time, even though the application form can be easier than you are used to. It's very important that you take your time to prepare each project to make it work, because sometimes, if you're not very careful, you can apply for a project and you get a project, and then when you have the co-financing, you realize it's not possible to make it happen.
So what kind of smaller projects or tasks did you carry out within this green cohesion project?
We started with an analysis. We did look at what cohesion policy financed in Slovenia in the field of green. Based on that, we choose some, we call it green ambassadors. These were people and projects that we presented in our campaigns, and we choose also 3 important parts that we then addressed also in the TV shows and consultations. And we focused on low carbon society, on biodiversity and circular economy, and we try to involve people through Facebook, having quizzes, having questions, asking people, what do you think cohesion policy should do to respect nature, or what do you think we have to do to protect the nature? And we got we got 400 responses altogether, a huge number. We are very surprised to see that people have. Sometimes we hear that people don't care, and it's not true. A lot of people really care. We just don't know how to listen to them and then how to implement what they're saying in some very important documents.
So do you think that enough cohesion funds are intended for environmental projects or things like green cohesion? Or
there is never enough money, I would say. But there are a lot of funds. Like I said, green cohesion, it's not co-financed, but cohesion policy. So if we took all together, we have the cohesion funds, and we have a lot of other funds that are available in Europe. We just need to take some time to look at all the different programs. I myself, I would say, I know a third of them, and it's a lot. But if you open all the websites of the European Union, there are a lot of funds. And then we just need to learn which idea is ideal for which program. Sometimes it's very important that we know how to combine different programs. So if we do an investment with cohesion policy, which is possible, then we can do the program by another program co-finds. And in this way, we can duplicate the results and the impact we have on the society, on the environment. But when we talk about environment, yes, of course, I would really like we invest more. I would really like my kids to see some species that are nowadays living. For example, if just I took my mother, when my mother was young, there were a lot of seahorses in Slovenian Sea. I never saw one, and it's just one generation. So it's scary to think what we're going to leave to our grandchildren. Will they be able to open the pipe and drink water? These are things that we need to talk and we need to build on, and I think that there will never be enough money, but more than money, we have to raise awareness among people. So I would really like maybe more money for so-called soft projects. They're working on the behavior of people, not just building things, but try to make people understand the situation and live a bit differently that we're used to live.
So did you have any other projects that were environmentally focused before Green Cohesion, or was that the first one?
We as association have a lot of projects, conferences with different things. We, in a project called RUK, we are combining different spheres. We are combining creative industry, technologies, and one of the big results, I would say, of my co-workers is they produce bioplastic out of shrimps. So it's a lot of innovating and researching. We did a project for Interact Danube, if I'm not wrong, regarding the gardening and agriculture in urban areas. We are just not working on a project regarding sea level rise and consequences in the Mediterranean. So it's a lot of things we are addressing. When we are working on the environment, we are always working cross-sectoral, trying to address the environmental issues, using also other different perspectives. Sometimes the best solutions come to life when you combine two things that don't go together. So we are trying to be innovative and do some research and some in a way make the society go further, become more green.
So did you have any problems when carrying out certain projects with Green Cohesion and stuff? Was there a problem with bureaucracy, or was there other sort of complications?
When we are talking about cohesion, there is a lot of administrative work you need to carry out. There are a lot of papers you need to present for cost to be eligible. You have to track records of every single minimum cost of €5. You have to have the order. You need to know when it was bought, who took it, where the cable is. So it's in a way when you start, it takes a lot of time, and it's very important to build a system in the organization. Of course, with Green Cohesion, the project was written in 2019 and was implemented in 2020, and it was all based on participation, and we know with COVID it was impossible to carry it out, so we need to move it online. So this was a big part also why we were really late with some activities, because we were waiting and hoping, but then at the end we just realized it's not possible. Otherwise, you really, with papers, you need to be careful, and you need to be careful that you are doing things you applied for. Because sometimes when you're implementing, you would just like to do something else, but if you didn't plan it, then it can be not eligible. So it's a lot of thinking for the preparation and for the implementation of the project.
So let's just talk a little bit about PINA in general. Mm-hmm. So what do you do as an organization?
PINA is an association from Koper. It's something more than 20 years old now. And in fact, it's very difficult to explain what I said, that we try to innovate and in a way help the society to develop in different fields. We have a very strong educational part, and we have this creative part, and we have the participatory part. We help some municipalities to do participatory processes. We innovate in the field of education, try to, we did a project with Norwegian funds when we were trying to support people to get employed in the non-governmental organizations. There is a lot of NGOs who need people, but for a reason, when you finish your studies, nobody thinks like, I would like to go to an NGO. It's like, are we going business or we are going public sector? But this is there, and NGO, it's a very important sector, and we make people, young people, the opportunity to get to know some organizations. They have practical work there, and I think 4 or 5 of those find a permanent job in these organizations. With the RUC, I already mentioned, we opened a lab that makes possible to people to innovate. We are also cooperating with a high school in Koper. In the environmental field, we are trying to combine sectors, so it's a very active organization, and we are always trying to react to what is going on in society, and sometimes work ahead of to address maybe some questions that will be a problem in the future already, so that we find ourselves prepared.
So are you gonna apply for any projects like Green Cohesion in the future?
We already have Green Cohesion 2. Was approved this year. We started the 1st of October, and it's called Green Cohesion for Young People. So this time we are trying to involve young people, and we are doing the peer-to-peer approach. We are having also Zavod za employment this time on board, so they will have debates about cohesion policy. We will have cooperate with primary schools and the media classes they have, so that young people will report about cohesion policy projects in their environment, and in this way probably young people will understand better what cohesion policy is. I think you have the same problem when people ask you what is cohesion policy, and you start with the Slovenian word, and now it's getting too complicated to explain. We will do something like a notebook with infographics about cohesion, and we are again having RTV Koper on board, so we will have again some spots and interviews, and we will talk again a lot about cohesion in the future.
So what is the main difference between this project that is sort of a continuation of the last one and the Green Cohesion?
This one is focusing on youth. We want to present young people as the one who can change our future, the one who are using already cohesion policy fund for development or for farmers to transform their farm, young researchers in the institutions. So we will have an open call, and we will choose 5 young people who are helping the environment through cohesion policy, and we will present them in TV shows and in spots. And we will make possible for young talented journalists to have a production on TV Koper at the end for the winning media class. And what is very important, at the end of the debate phase, we will have this national campaign or national event, and we would really like the decision makers to come and to listen to young people, to listen to what they're thinking, to listen what they want, how they want to address it in the future. Because we are creating the environment for young people, and it's very important that they have the word and the right to say what they want and how they want to address it. Because if you're going to see there is a research, if you're a parliament, I think that it's a very low number of young people who think that they're included in important decision-making processes. So we would really like to give these young people the opportunity to say to someone that can implement their wishes or their solutions.
So we're gonna move on to the Q&A part. We've got 2 or 3 questions, I think. The first one being, how did you promote Green Cohesion project? Did you do it on social media? Did you go to certain organizations and talk to them? How did that work?
Green Cohesion was a promotion itself, so we have this very successful profile on Facebook. We had page on the MMC, on the portal of RTV, of the national TV. I have some numbers, I think it's 37 journalist initiatives on TV. We have free TV shows, we have free conversations, so we did, 10 or 20 quizzes to attract people to see the profile. We have 37 posts on MMC. It was a lot of promotion, and I think this is something we need to do when we do projects, because not long ago I heard from a member of the commission, cohesion money and cohesion policy is made for people. So if we do a project and it doesn't have a reflection of people, or people don't know it, then we have the thinking cohesion policy does nothing for us. But I think that everyone, if it goes in the environment he or she is living and pay attention, there are a lot of things that have been done with kindergartens, with schools, with roads, with saving biodiversity. So it's, I think we missed the opportunity to promote it in the past, and I think it's very important that we talk about it, and that we talk about it, that you talk about it. So because maybe more people that know about cohesion policy, more people will be able to prepare a project, and then more project we have, more possibility we have to have very good project.
So was there any like smaller project or something that you did that stuck out to you, that was, you would say, oh, that was like a really good TV program, or like that was something that I'm really proud of that we were a part of?
In Green Cohesion?
Or in general?
I'm proud of a lot of things in general for the organization I'm working for. I'm not for a long time here. I was employed in a totally different sector before. I think definitely raising awareness, it's one very important thing. I'm very proud when we are able to include people with less opportunities. I'm very proud of the festival we're having just now in Koper, called ISIS. Regarding Green Cohesion, I was very proud that my co-workers were able to create this profile on Facebook and were able to engage people to respond, because sometimes it's difficult. So we were really able to get a feedback from people and their ideas, and it's very important that we were able then to these ideas were then put in a document, and this document was sent to policymakers around, and I'm very happy that the Ministry of Infrastructure respond with what they are doing, saying we already do that and we did that, and we publish their respond so that people see that something has been done with their thoughts. I think it's very important that we show to people that, you know, we did something with it. That is just not, you talk with us and that's all, but the whole process of participation till the end, I think it's very important. I'm very happy that the ministry responded. I think this is very good signal for the future, that we will be able to include or to make the preparation of new documents even more participatory and inclusive.
So you mentioned that you worked with radio or television Koper.
Mm-hmm.
So were there any other partners in green cohesion and now in green cohesion for younger people?
No, in green cohesion were just the two of us, and then the green cohesion for young people, we have also Zavod za Improti. It's the association for debating, because debating is a very important technique to talk and to discover different things, and putting cohesion in their debates will make the debaters research about cohesion, and they will learn by themselves what cohesion is. So we will talk you about cohesion. You will learn by yourself, and then you will talk about it and you will discuss it. And I think this is very important to make, again, young people participating.
Okay, so those were all the questions. Thank you for your time and that you came to Ljubljana and answer everything. I would like to thank the audience for sticking with us, for listening to this. I hope you learned a little bit about cohesion policy and cohesion policy when it comes to environmental projects. And yes, I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to learn more, just check on our website. We have many shows that are called Europe in Our Backyard, where you can learn more about cohesion policy.